Hey guys, today is a video that I think a lot of people waited for, which is let's talk about how to play the game properly around the objectives. Which Dreadnought is important, which ROTOM is important, what should you be doing after you've taken the objective, which objectives you should be going for, and what to do with Zapdos and late game ROTOM and Dreadnoughts. And I think that's something people just don't really do well, is indicating which objective is important. And it's straightforward when it comes between Dread and ROTOM. The most important thing is the first Dreadnought. That is the most important objective besides Zapdos. Let's just leave Zapdos out for now. The most important objective is the first Dread. The second one is the third ROTOM. And then the third one is the second Dread. Those, I think, is the highest priority you can have. And you know, there's a lot of baits, I think. There's a lot of things that people just get baited by and think, oh, it's so important to go for these. And the biggest bait one is the first ROTOM and the last Dreadnought, from what I've noticed in my games as well. And specifically, you know, it just happens almost every single game. The first ROTOM pretty much doesn't do you any favor. Killing the first top goal is just nothing you really want to do necessarily. And breaking the goal this early into the game is just not something you should be looking for in solo queue. It's just not very smart. Since again, you shift all the experience from your side to the enemy side, which just means you will lose a lot of experience over the course of the game. It only makes sense if you know I'm a split pusher, I'm confident in split pushing, and my team, like we don't contest Dreadnought, then it's fine, right? If you don't go for the first Dread at all with your team, and you break top goal, push ROTOM into the second goal, take the entire jungle, but that just doesn't happen in solo queue, let's be honest. No one is going to do that. People break goals and then they leave and do something else. That's something I also like talk a lot about. So yeah, first Dreadnought I think is just the most important thing. It's very simple, you just have to get it. And you have an advantage on bot side, it's quite easy to get, and it snowballs games very hard when it comes to experience, right? Very, very hard. So how do we play the first Dreadnought? It's very important that the jungler plays obviously around maybe bot side. Like if you're a jungler, ganking bot lane gives you advantage for Dread as well. So ganking bot can be quite important. And I think the most important thing is just like, try, if you play defender or support top lane or anything, try to at least have one guy rotating bot to the 720 Bs. So that when your jungler still clears his jungle for potentially being level 9, you still have 3 people bot lane that can defend the goal and maybe fight for the Bs. And especially if you're a tank or support. If you're Wigglytuff, Mamoswine, Slowbro, Eldegoss, Blissey, and use top lane, leave for bot lane. Go recall a top lane on like 735, 730, and go bot lane and be there on the 720 Bs. And just leave your damage dealer, who hopefully is a damage dealer still on top lane, just leave him top lane alone. And go towards bot lane. If you're 2 damage dealers and you see your loop or your partner or your lane partner doesn't move towards bot lane, be the one that goes towards bot lane. And make sure you're there at 720 Bs on bot side, you can contest it, maybe get an advantage, and just make sure your bot lane doesn't die. Because what happens a lot, when only 2 people are bot lane, they just die. They're like, oh, my jungler's still clearing his jungle, I'm just gonna be aggressive, or the enemy jungler's here, let's just walk into him and die. And suddenly the enemies can get a Dreadnought for free. Very straightforward. After this, so what do you do after Dreadnought has been done? I mean, now we're fighting for Dreadnought, I'm just having this gameplay in the back just to have a bit easier time talking about all of this. And it was a pretty good upsole game as well. Here, I really don't want Wigglytuff to break it. So it makes no sense to break this goal. For what reason? I don't really necessarily want to split push. Like, I'm so good at contesting all these Audinos on my side that I could just farm my Audinos up pretty much the entire game. So I think this is a big mistake people do is after Dreadnought is dead, they all leave towards top lane. They break bot goal and leave top and go towards top side. But what you should be doing instead is have 1 or 2 people go top side to defend or farm A-poms, and then have the rest pushing bot lane. You should have a Unite advantage, right? Okay, here I died. Sadly, to get the really tough Unite, I really wanted to score here. But like, imagine we have 3 or 4 people there still, right? Instead of going for ROTOM on top lane. This is the ROTOM I think is one of the biggest baits in the game. We could just be bot lane, we could take the entire outside Audino, we could invade their jungle, and we could always go into the second base. These are things you should be doing instead. Because the second ROTOM pretty much like, how often have you guys noticed that when people try and push the ROTOM in, they all die? Look, 2 people are already dead, trying to push the ROTOM in. You overextend so much on the enemy side, who might have Unite moves at this point now, that you just run into an opponent who have big shields from their scores, and you have nowhere to run to, because you go to so far away, right? You're on the enemy side of the map, you have nowhere to run, which means you will probably just get ran down. Instead, just go towards bot lane, maybe ping the second goal, and push bot lane. You will have Unite moves for that as well, and yeah, you will get much, much more value out of that for sure. And yeah, the first ROTOM, again, doesn't really do much. It only really makes sense pushing with ROTOM is if you have all Unite moves up, right? And you know you can break the second goal. There's multiple ways you can play it. Either you all go top lane with 5 Unite moves and push the ROTOM. If you notice your teammates don't have Unite moves up, don't even walk towards. Just go walk towards bot lane and try to get a score on the other side of the map. Because the enemies might send all top lane, right, to defend that ROTOM. from pushing to the second base. So just look at your teammates' Unite moves, right? You see it on the top. There's a yellow icon above the portraits. We don't see it right now because someone has Unite moves up. If your teammates don't have Unite moves up, just leave them. Like, they're just rocking into a death trap, and you might just die as well. Just try to do something on the other side of the map. Try to get your score in on the bottom goal instead. And yeah, now we talk about the second dread. I think the second dread is also still very important. It gives a good amount of experience. But this could be debatable. Like, the second Rotom and the second dread can be quite fine, can be quite the same. It just depends on what you do with it, how you play it. Are you getting something to the second goal or not? But in general, I think right now, like, the dread is still very, very important. You had a nice outplay on Upsoil, living on the edge of my HP. And yeah, now we see Rotom spawning in 10 seconds. This is a Rotom we can go for, but again, if you don't have your Unite moves up, yeah. I mean, this is the last time we can use Unite moves, right? It's 2 minutes until Zapdos, so we could use our Unite moves, but I don't really have it, so I'm just gonna farm right now. But this Rotom is totally fine to go for, but again, like, if you now get this Rotom and you push it with it, you might risk using, unless I'm going to use Unite moves right before Zapdos, because it's going to take a while to maybe take this down as well. The enemies are there, and then everyone's going to overextend and just die and use Unite moves, like a Wigglytuff popping United like 310 or something, trying to push a Rotom in, and it's always bad. Also, something I forgot to add, like, it's just, objectives don't matter if your entire side of XP is up. If your entire side of experience up, if you have 3 Audinos on top side, you have 2 buffs up, your entire Corphish is up, you have also maybe have Audinos on bot side. Those experiences can be much, much more important to farm than any value the Rotom will ever give to you. So just always try to value as well. Like, you just saw me farming that a lot, right? And that farming just made sure that I get safe experience over having to fight for something where I might lose and die, right? So always value, like, if your entire side is up, if you see all those yellow dots on your side, though farming those is much, much more important than any second Rotom will ever be in most cases. The only Rotom I really think is very good, it's like the 30 seconds before Zapdos Rotom, right? That's pressure something, but even then I don't think it's that useful as well. If the enemies have a Rotom pushing towards the second tier goal, just let it go in. It doesn't matter if they score 100 points. The game is most likely, every solo queue game gets decided by Zapdos anyways, most likely, right? It gets decided by a Zapdos team fight. So if you notice the enemies have a Rotom pushing during Zapdos into your second base, it doesn't matter. The only problem is if it pushes into your main base. That's honestly the biggest issue. Right here, this is the perfect example. Wigglytuff just used Unite move at 320, which means Wigglytuff is not gonna have this up, trying to push Rotom in alone. People just tunnel vision so hard on pushing this Rotom in, and it's just very difficult. The second goal zone has so much healing on it and so much shielding, you can't push it in if you don't use Unite moves, right? And right now, at this point in the game, we don't want to use Unite moves anymore. And yeah. And now let's talk about the thing that annoys me the most, I think, is this DREDNAW right here. This DREDNAW spawning in 27 seconds, which is 20 seconds before Zapdos. If you have a lead in the game, it makes no sense to go for it. The XP you get from a late game DREDNAW on the shield is so unimportant. Having position at Zapdos is so much more important. Being able to beam the brushes in Zapdos. Sadly, I have to walk towards here because I know my team is going to fight for it. But I'm just mainly going bot lane to defend bot goal. But having brush advantage and having vision advantage is so much better. I'm not going to start this thread. Like, I don't want to start this thread. I'm just here because the second bot goal is still up. But yeah, and we can always go back a bit. So we can look for a small fight, but not necessarily should never go for this thread now. Which happens a lot in solo queue. People just love this third thread, and having position and Zapdos, like anchoring all these brushes up here, right? You can, I don't know if you can't see my cursor. Just being in the brushes, making people walk into you. My entire team just died for this thread. The enemies actually did some Unite moves, and because the problem is, if you're ahead, right, your death timers are much higher than your opponents, which means that if you die on this third thread, your game might be over. And my entire team just died, which means, yeah, I have to pretty much clutch this right now. We could have just been in any of these brushes, make our opponents face check into it, and just win the game by just being in there, right? So I luckily get the Zapdos, I do a 1v4, and I kill 2 characters, get Zapdos on the last hit. This right here is a great example. So instead of going for the bot thread, I decide to just bean a brush. Again, just being up here. The enemies are, my Serena's doing something weird down there, which is just not the right play. And instead we just trap here. We just trap, make our opponents, they have to walk into Zapdos. And this advantage of having people having to walk into Zapdos is just so huge. You know, they don't have vision on you, while you have vision on the entire enemy team, right? And they have no idea where you are. So just playing around this fog of war, and that's what I always like to do. Like when you play a damage character, just try and stay in brushes, stay out of fog, right? Again, another good example is right here. This thread is not up here, but just showing how important Zapdos positioning is, right? Like people tunnel vision so hard of walking to the Zapdos pit even though nothing happens. And then you can do stuff like this. and they just walk in, you trap them if you're a damage dealer, and suddenly you win the game. It is so much better than doing any of the other things. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If any questions left, feel free to ask about it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you want more of these kind of videos, I will for sure look into it. Let me know what you would like me to talk about. But thank you guys for watching. I know you wanted like a Zapdos positioning guide. It's quite difficult just getting the perfect footage for it, but I will try. But thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you in the next video. Bye!